In today's video, we are going to be going over all of the gear that John Mayer was using for his first full band performances since the Sob Rock tour concluded, the first full band performances in over 3 years over the September 26th weekend. We're going to be discussing the guitars, although there wasn't too much going on in terms of the guitars for these specific shows at least, the amplifier setup that John was using, and the fun part, the pedal board in its entirety. We got everything John was using in terms of pedals, got it all, so I'm really excited to go all over that in today's video, and I'll sprinkle in some tone clips as well for you guys. There hasn't been a ton of footage that I've seen get released from these shows that's been stellar, like really either clear for the stage or to see anything that John's stepping on. Unfortunately, just kind of the way these more festival shows have been set up, but I'll still include some great tone examples kind of here and there to break the video up a little bit more. So let's dive right on into all of the gear that John's using for these full band performances. So starting off with the guitars, the primary guitar that John was using for these shows, interestingly enough, was a faded black tea satin silver sky. I believe probably one of the ones that John has been using for a couple of years now, kind of with the Sob Rock era. We saw him using it during some of the Grateful Dead shows at the Sphere as well. And I feel like this is just one of John's current favorite silver skies. It's got the prototype sticker on it, so whether or not it has like a unique spec to it or something like that, but to me, you see a lot of these scratch marks even on the guitar above the pickguard, so it's one that John's clearly been using quite a bit. It's not a new guitar to say the least, because it just wouldn't have the scratch marks on it. So this is the guitar I think John's just had with him, and it's just one of his favorite actual silver skies to use now as kind of his main touring guitar. But it's interesting because the kind of more olive brown copper, whatever color you kind of want to call it depending on the lighting, the new finish of the silver sky that we saw first debuted with the 60th anniversary shows celebrating the Grateful Dead, John, from all the footage I've seen, didn't use that finish at all, which is just what I expected him to use for the vast majority of the shows at least, but in fact he actually didn't seem to use it. He really relied on that faded black tea satin guitar, so whether or not he's prototyping that finish and they're in between maybe finalizing something, who knows as to the reasoning as to why, but I am not totally surprised as well that this faded black tea satin, the one that seems to be the same guitar over the past couple of years now, has really stuck around with John as one of his current main stage, at least silver skies. Now, as far as the other guitars are concerned, really the only other things that are interesting and noteworthy really, of course, is the Charvel San Dimas was used for multiple performances of I Guess I Just Feel Like for the solo. Sounded absolutely wild. I did a video covering kind of the first night that John used it again with his full band. That's a separate video on the channel if you guys want to go and check that out. But that guitar we saw returning to the stage. As well as the Derby Red SE Silver Sky was actually used for a performance of Love on the Weekend, which is just interesting because the SE Silver Sky, in terms of John performing with his full band at least, has been really reserved for New Light. However, this is just a departure from that, and seeing John perform a different song with this guitar is just really cool.
It's a Friday, we finally made it. I can't believe I get to see your face. You've been working, and I've been waiting to pick you up and take you from this place. Love on the weekend, love on the weekend, like only we can, like only we can.
Oh, and I almost forgot, speaking of the SE Silver Sky, John did use Dandelion as well for Waiting on the World to Change. So another just cool example of him branching out with the SE Silver Sky live for a just, Waiting on the World to Change, an absolute classic song. But between Love on the Weekend and Waiting on the World to Change, those are the only other two ones that I've at least seen footage of John using an SE for something, that's that departure from New Light. So let's take a quick listen to a bit of that as well. And then we also saw John using the Ohm 45, which that silver burst finish, I have to say, is kind of growing on me quite a bit. I was down in Los Angeles in August to see Cardinal Black live, stopped into Guitar Center and actually saw an Ohm 45 in person behind kind of the glass display they had in the Martin section there. It's a beautiful guitar in person especially, so still obviously I think very cool to see John touring and using these limited silver burst finishes of his signature guitar. So the Ohm 45 is just another kind of cool highlight from these shows to see John bringing it back out again. Moving on now to the amplifiers. The amp setup is the exact same as the rehearsal shows that we saw John doing. They did a performance for benefits of Heart and Armor, John's charity for veterans, which is a really awesome cause. It's the Fender Bandmaster Dumble Steel String Singer 002 and the Two Rock Custom Reverb Signature number 83, John's own custom version of the custom reverb sig, essentially, that Two Rock built for him back in 2004. Same amp setup as we saw here, and kind of like a continuation of the 2019 World Tour and Sob Rock setup in terms of John using one Fender amplifier, one Dumble, and one Two Rock, all three amplifiers running on all the time, complementing each other. The Bandmaster and the Two Rock are sat on 112 cabinets that are JMod spec, just 112s, and then the Steel String Singer is sat on a 212. Speakers wise, we don't know at this time. It's impossible to say for 100% certainty, so I'm not even going to really try and say what they could be. Like John's used EVs before, especially in the 112s, G1265s. Very likely, maybe one or of those could be, but really, it's just pure speculation at this point. So speakers, not really too worried about that at this point because there's just no way to really confirm what John was actually using. But now let's take a listen to another tone clip I'll play for you guys, and then we'll go on to the pedal board. Okay, now the pedalboard, and it's been a while since I've really had to search for shots and different angles of what John had on his pedalboard, especially with him playing with the full band. It's really exciting to try and figure these things out again, especially it was fun with Dead and Company, but there's just something special about, John performing with this full band, at least for me personally, and that's the part of John's career that I love the most and is most exciting to me. So with the full band, hearing a lot of these songs performed again, sorting out a new pedalboard for this era as well, at least for the start. It's going to evolve, I'm sure, and things will change as time goes on, especially hopefully new single comes out, new album, new full-on tour. I'm sure it'll evolve and change, but to start this kind of new time off is super exciting, and finding different shots and angles from different stories that were posted from different people, different Instagram reels, finding just corners and pieces of the pedalboard. There'll be some of these on your screen I'll throw up for you guys. There was enough to kind of piece it together, but we never really got that great of a shot, except there's this one where the camera guy did us quite a bit of a solid and got a, I'd say 80% of the board in one shot, instead of just having a little bit of a corner in one photo, another corner, or another kind of side angle shot from another one where you're piecing together everything. This kind of is the bulk of the pedalboard that we see here, and kind of the best single reference shot that at least I currently have at this point in time for you guys. But I did have a bit of a backup plan that I thought would be cool to do, and I actually completely mocked up John's board on Photoshop and have it ready to go. So that's exactly what we're going to rely on to actually discuss the board. But there are these shots that I'll kind of have around as well to reference. But the guide that I've built for you guys, it's exactly what John is using. Okay, running through John's pedalboard, as always, we're going to go from first row, second row, third row, right to left if you're John looking down on the pedalboard. And I'll touch on the signal chain a little bit as well, because I don't think it's entirely right to left going through the rows as you work way front kind of to the back of the board. We start off with the TC Electronics Polytune 3, John's go-to electric tuner of choice since 2019 now. Just above it, we have the Keeley True Bypass Looper. This should be to activate the psych loop for the Shinai Companion Psychedelic Amplifier machine, the Super Fuzz circuit that is used for, I guess, I Just Feel Like. There are two of those units in John's rack, and basically since the 2019 World Tour, he's just had two of those units in a rack unit with him. I assume one is main, one as a backup, because it's a very old unit, probably extremely temperamental, high chance it actually might fail. Even just in transport, something kind of might get jostled loose. You never know. Having two of those is definitely kind of the right, safe way to go, because that fuzz sound is so key to, I guess, I Just Feel Like. So that is what that True Bypass Looper should be there to activate. Then we have the exotic XW1 wah pedal, John's go-to wah pedal of choice as well since 2019. A lot of these pedals have really become staples since the 2019 World Tour. John's kind of found a lot of new favorites that have been, these staples for the modern kind of era of his sound. Next, we have an Origin Effects pedal, most likely going to be the Slide Rig. It's kind of John's main go-to compressor now. Same thing for a handful of years now at this point in time. Following that, we have the Ibanez TS10. Just wouldn't be a John Mayer board without the TS10. Next is the exotic Super Clean for the clean boost on the pedal board. It's replaced the Keeley Katana at this point in time, at least. Whether or not that's kind of also for spacing issues as well. It's kind of a mini pedal that John really likes the clean boost functionality out of. The Katana V1 at least is a lot bigger, and in all honesty, probably wouldn't fit on this pedal board, because a lot of the pedals, if they have the jacks at the back, top mounted, they're right squished, absolutely side by side, could not get any closer together. So it kind of goes to show, even, the next pedal, the JHS Box It Later, again, another staple from the modern era of John's sound since 2022. You can look at where the jacks are, it's right up against the side of the Klon. You're like space is an absolute premium on this pedal board. So we have the TS10 Exotic Super Clean, then we have the JHS pedals Box It Later, followed by the Klon Centaur. Then the next two pedals are kind of a little bit surprising additions, to be honest, things I didn't totally expect, but we have the 10 Years Is a Decade. This pedal being used for Last Train Home, kind of doing the Soldano SLO 100, kind of more higher gainy tone. That's what we very much theorized John to be using this pedal for. Really interesting though, the choice that this is kind of what John has brought with him. We've seen him use it before, But the fact that it's made its way onto an actual full-on touring pedal board is pretty cool. This pedal as well was seen for the Sob Rock tour as well. Again, kind of theorized to be used for really just Last Train Home. There's actually some footage of John we've seen in the past stepping on it for it. So kind of makes sense as that's kind of what he's using to run for a little bit of a tonal difference for Last Train Home. The very last pedal on this front row, the Marshall Bluesbreaker. I'm willing to bet it's still a Mark 1, like an original 90s Mark 1, not a new version. It's John, he can have really anything he wants. Just makes more sense he would take out a vintage Bluesbreaker, throw it back on the pedal board, but it makes me so excited to have TS10, Klon Centaur, and the Bluesbreaker. The tone possibilities here now that we have could be absolutely wild. Moving up now to the second row, we have the Boss OC3, the Electro Harmonix Qtron Plus, and a second exotic Super Clean. Now, this second exotic Super Clean, I believe, would be in the loop of the Qtron Plus, something we've seen John do in the past with a second Keeley Katana, except again, spacing being very much a premium, it easily makes sense to have a Super Clean taking the place for just the lack of space, and as well, it's a phenomenal clean boost too, so it kind of works out really well as this usage. But that's what I believe is going on there, especially in this one shot we have of where you actually see the pedal board on the screen. It's activated on, and I'm sure it's just always on basically for whenever Johnny's using the Qtron. He just has it in there to boost things just a little bit more. That's what I kind of believe is going on there. Next to it, we have the blacked out Boss CE2, followed by the JHS Pedals Artificial Blonde. So something from Dead & Company actually making its way now onto John's main tour pedal board, a pedal he's obviously fallen in love with for kind of some, bit out there vibrato sounds or just some subtle vibrato, a little bit of just subtle modulation. This pedal now we've seen get moved onto his board, which is really cool. And then another interesting addition to the board here is the Way Huge Aquapus, but it's a Mark II. When it comes to John's actual full-on touring pedal boards, it's always been a Mark 1 except for the 2017 World Tour. So I wonder if this pedalboard setup might change in that way for the actual eventual, obviously new album is going to come out. We're going to get a new tour, hopefully in 2026. The Way Jogopus at that point might change to the Mark 1 because it seems to be something that John is very much stuck with, at least for his own tours. The Mark 1 is what he's actually used for that full-on pedal board, but then for B-rigs or with Dead & Company, he's used the Mark II mainly, so who knows, but it's just something, again, just an interesting change here, slight change from previous versions that John was using instead in terms of his pedal board, at least previous iterations of the board. Rounding out the second row, we have the Strymon Flint, another just massive John Mayer staple. Not a surprise that it's on the board at all. So moving up to the third row, we start off with the Boss TU3, which is just John's go-to acoustic tuner of choice. It's just been something very consistent that they've done with the board, where the TC Electronics Polytune or even the Polytune Mini, we've seen him use for the electric tuner, but then the Boss tuners in terms of the TU3 have stuck with being the acoustic. I don't really know why. It's just something, as someone who's documenting things and a lot of it lives up here, it's just, it's not a surprise at all just to see if that's the way it is in terms of the tuners at least, and that's where the acoustic tuner usually lives, that top right spot on the pedal board on the third row. The next pedal being the 29 pedals Una. The Una and the Wamp, I believe is actually how it's pronounced, have been pedals John's very much used within the mix as well, quite a ton. The Wamp was used for the Sob Rock tour, but then the 29 pedals Una we've seen used a lot for like Dead & Company as well. Then of course making its way back now onto the full-on pedal board. It's really cool to kind of see one of the 29 pedals pretty consistently staying in the mix as well for the modern John Mayer sound as well. Believed to kind of be a bit of an always on thing too, like in this one shot here again of the pedal board. You actually just see it's on, and then pretty much every shot of John's board that's been crystal clear modern days that I've seen, the LED is just on. So I think he's just using it as a little bit of a booster, tone enhancer with the buffer kind of thing going on. Just as like a subtle, always on tone enhancer pretty much at this point. The next pedal, the monstrous, the phenomenal Korg STD 3000 PDL version, my current favorite delay pedal that I've ever owned. So excited to actually see John transitioning this delay pedal to his full band set. When I saw him using it with Dead & Company at the Sphere, I just was like, oh man, it's so sweet. The Edge connection, the Edge being one of my other favorite guitar players. Really just hoping John to continue using this with his own band, and to see him using it, it's absolutely crazy. It makes me so excited because it's just something cool. It's a really great sounding unit and just different. A little bit of a change up for John to use this pedal instead. So that's what we have going on there. I believe the big yellow like tape that's across it is just in big like Sharpies I've written, you know, up, down, A, B, or like main, solo, whatever it kind of is. But it'd be kind of interesting to see if we actually get some footage of John scrolling through the presets on it to see if they've actually have programmed, you know, like 1 is belief, 2 is slow dancing, 3, I guess I just feel like, you know what I mean? Like they could program a lot of different unique delay sounds, even tonally wise in the different modes for different songs with this pedal, instead of John just kind of sticking with, you know, the Providence delay 80s for certain delay sounds, the Providence chrono for others, the Octopus, of course, covering the slapback, but this kind of provides a little bit more in terms of variety for delay. So it makes me really excited as well, just how much more powerful this delay is compared to all of the other ones he generally uses. Really cool, really interesting. I just hope he sticks with it for a while because I just think it's absolutely awesome. The next pedal beside the STD 3000 is the Templo Audio Devices Real Deluxe, a Canadian brand. It always makes me super excited as a Canadian to see John using a Canadian pedal on his board. This is another one that we just saw him using with the 60th anniversary celebrations of the Grateful Dead. Now it's made its way onto John's actual full band touring pedal board. It's one that I really got to check out. It makes me really curious to see. The demos sound pretty interesting with this pedal as well, so it's one I definitely have to get and try out for myself. The pedal next to it is the one that was the biggest kind of mystery, and all of the original shots that we had were pretty hard to tell exactly what this pedal was. It kind of looked like it might be a Halo core from Keeley Electronics at first, but then it didn't quite fit the format. But 99.9% sure it's the Hammond Leslie G, something we've seen John using with Dead & Company for his Leslie sounds. It even looks like in this one shot here, the green LED, you can kind of make out that it's like flashing or on. But yeah, that's what I'm pretty confident in saying that pedal is there. You see the little white circle kind of above the two switches, and then there's a little bit of white writing you can make out across the bottom of the pedal in between the switches as well. Kind of all lines up with the Hammond Leslie G. So that's what I believe is there. The next pedal we have is a New Neighbor Slate for Love on the Weekend, followed by the last pedal, the New Neighbor Illumin, covering kind of the larger reverbs for solos and things like that John would add on just for some additional reverb when he's soloing. That's kind of what the Lumen is doing. It could do the Love on the Weekend Slate wet reverb algorithm as well, but during Sob Rock, we kind of saw John scrolling through it a bunch to find the Love on the Weekend preset, and then the very next show, he had the Slate back on, so I think he just thought, you know what, I'll scroll through a little bit or have like a couple of presets on there, but then let's just have the Slate on for when it's Love on the Weekend. I just know, go to that pedal. That'll always be set for that specific sound. And that rounds out the pedal board in its entirety. I'm really excited to be able to say that at this point in time, we already have everything that John had on the pedal board. I did not honestly think we would. The Hammond Leslie G, that was the one kind of, you know, this is Sunday midday now at this point that I thought we might not fully know what it was, but now we have it. That was the last piece of the puzzle. So to be able to say at this point in time, we know the entire board is pretty wild. Now, in terms of the signal chain, kind of the key things to note here for the board is that the psychedelic amplifier machine in the Keeley Looper is first in the chain. That's what's going to be going on there. Then it probably goes up to the 29 pedals Una, then down to the Polytune 3, and then from that point, somewhat of something kind of across right to left, probably the compressor, the slide rig first, then TS10 like into Klon Centaur, Blues Breaker, maybe. You know, like I said, with like the ergonomics of it as well, it's possible that the Blues Breaker could be before the TS10 without having a kind of better shot to actually see the cabling. There could be a little bit of, switching around going on in terms of the signal chain, but kind of, I'm willing to bet that the drives at least probably go TS10 into Klon Centaur as far as like the primary gain stacking order there. I'm pretty sure it'd be TS10 into Klon Centaur. Then otherwise, everything as well probably is fairly grouped together. We have like a modulation section with the CE2 and the artificial blonde. We have our delays and then our reverbs as well. The Real Deluxe, maybe that could be switched around where it's actually kind of bundled together maybe with like the CE2 and the artificial blonde. If that's doing kind of more of that kind of tape kind of modulation sort of thing. I'm not sure exactly how John has it set up and what he's using it for. Could be after the STD 3000 and the Octopus as well. But, these are just kind of the things where it's like, it's kind of close enough where you might have a little bit of, you know, pre and post in terms of the way it actually looks from like where the pedals are actually physically set versus the signal chain, but it's all probably something fairly similar to what we are seeing here. Even like the OC3 could be before the drives. It could go like the compressor, then the OC3, then the TS10, right? A few things like that. I would say it's probably not 100% right to left, but it's all kind of bundled close enough together where this gives you a pretty decent picture, I feel like, for what the rough kind of path and signal chain is probably like. And there you guys have it. That's my full gear breakdown for John's first full band performances in over 3 years. It's super exciting to start off a new John Mayer era in terms of the tones, gears. Like I've said, praying a new album tour come out in 2026 into 2027 would be really amazing, and it's all going to be covered on the channel as you guys can expect. And I hope you enjoyed me kind of just making a little bit of a mock of John's pedal board there. It's not, you know, the pedals aren't absolutely to scale, but I felt like it was, you know, done enough where you totally can get the idea as to what is going on. I wasn't going to sit there and absolutely try and nail, okay, like the SCD-3000 is this much bigger than the Una, for example. You know, like I think it works pretty well, and it was kind of fun to actually slowly piece together and make. It's how I design my pedal boards, actually. I don't use like a software or anything like online, or like Pedalboard Builder or some of those ones that are out there. I just have fun doing it in Photoshop. Kind of just messing around with things that way. So it was kind of just a fun thing to spend, you know, a bit of the afternoon just chilling, watching some TV and build up for you guys as well. Just because until we got that shot, the cameraman really doing us a solid, just panning point blank over John's board, and you know, he's looking back at it, probably thinking, oh, you know, well, there you guys go. I guess cat's out of the bag in terms of what I'm using. Without that full-on pan, we really didn't have much to go off of in terms of a full, really great singular shot. It was all just corners, different angles, piecing it all together like a puzzle. But either way, I thought that and hope that is a little bit more helpful and useful to give you guys a clearer picture without a real clear picture. Anyways, you guys, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for lots more coverage from, you know, this new era of John Mayer's tone gear music. Looking forward to it all. Take care, guys. I'll see you on the next one.
Anyway, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you like what you see.